has the infection rate and it has like how many people are critical and so on. But what you see at the below are the charts, which is something that a lot of reporting and intelligence work that we do in analytics is about visualization. And what visualization does is that it gives a visual storyline that what is actually happening, and it enables then for users to take actions. For example, if you look at the graph here, this is all of world cases. We are still going up. Like in the UK, what the government was able to do is when the graph started going down, they were able to gradually release the lockdown. They put cutoffs that like if we go below this, we'll do this. If we go below this, we'll do this, and so on. So you're able to then make decisions, and that is the power of analytics, that you can not only like use data, but you can like use that data for making meaningful decisions for whatever area you are using it for. This is a case of e-commerce. I believe a lot of you might have done shopping, and what you see here is that based on what you see or browse, the e-commerce sites start recommending stuff to you, that these are other things you might be interested in, or they'll say different things like related to items you have viewed. Sometimes like on Netflix, they will say you that because you have watched this movie, maybe these are the other 10 you may want to watch. But what is happening at the back end is where analytics comes into action. So what they're basically doing is they're running a huge algorithm at the back end. We call it collaborative filtering, where they have a huge matrix of users that what do users watch, and they basically then try to find out patterns in that users who do this also are likely to do these three things more. And this is used a lot in digital marketing, a lot in e-commerce now to drive more revenue for the companies, and is an important part. But if you think of this, just running this algorithm is a very intensive part, and that's where like data analysts, data science, and even the platform specialists come into play. Because if you think of it like, and you can just try it on your own on Amazon, just go on Amazon, browse for something, and you'll see that like your page starts changing dynamically. But what is happening at the back end is that it is going through an inventory of billions of items that Amazon has on its inventory list, and it is running that at a personal level. And Amazon has millions of users. So if you start multiplying those two things, you can understand that like what is the complexity associated here, what these companies are dealing with. Plus also that how fast they are doing it, because within a few milliseconds they will be able to change your page based on a decision that they have taken using all the data. And that is where like coding and programming are becoming like more and more hooked up with the career options in data and analytics as advancements are happening on speed as well as the volume of data growing. I talked briefly about gaming, but this is again a very heavy usage of analytics. They use it for basically measurement purposes. Like they would just measure that how many users are engaging for it. They would look at things like, for example, if a company has 10 games, they would look at which games drives more revenue per user, which game drives more time per user, and so on. And they would use those to make decisions that how do they want to do it. But what also happens a lot in analytics is experimentation. So like I talked about the vaccine, where what happens in a clinical trial is that they try to give one group something which is like just like a sugar pill. It will not have any medicine. And the other group, they try to give a medicine. They will not tell those groups that what they've got. And then they will just look at results that which group responded better to that. Was it the effect of medicine, or it was just by chance that someone improved? The same thing happens in gaming and in even digital websites. What a lot of companies are now doing is experimentation. So they will show a group of users a variant of a game. They will show another group of users another variant of a game. And they will then compare at the back end using data, is that which variant drives more engagement, which variant drives a higher revenue for them, and so on. And based on that, they can take decisions. Like, for example, a big part of their revenue generation is the diamonds they sell, or the stars they sell, or like the coins they sell in their games. So they start to kind of evaluate that, okay, is for this thing, is 50 coins the right price or 100 coins the right price? So they can start making those kind of decisions by running these kind of experiments. The next usage is supply chain analytics. I picked up this example because it touches a lot of a lot of the value chain that we are exposed to. So if you think of an Amazon, like recently there was a stage uh, where there was a lockdown, and we had to basically plan that how will the demand change and how we have to kind of moderate supply. And it was a classic example of like analytics being used for that. So and uh, and that's where supply chain analytics is very important for all these companies. They have to ensure that they have the right amount of inventory by forecasting the demand. So a lot of effort goes in forecasting demand, that if it is, say for example, if it is the school opening season and if it gets pushed by like a month or so, they would have to have a different level of stock of, say, school accessories that the kids would need. And let's say it is not just like demand forecasting for these vendors who are in retail, but it is also for vendors who are in like things like travel. Like for example, Make My Trip might do like bulk bookings based on the demand that they anticipate from users, and they might get a cost advantage based on that, and so on. It also is important for how do they set up their supply chain. For example, a lot of work for manufacturing companies, say in automobile industry, also goes into parts like, do they create this part in Pune or do they create this part in, say, Dehradun? So, and the reason they do it is they have to basically look at where it is being consumed. So they look at data patterns, that where it is being consumed, they can overlay the cost data onto that what is the cost of transporting it from one place to the other. And by bringing it all together, they can say that, okay, this this mix makes more sense for us and this mix is more profitable. So you do a lot of scenario planning, and a lot of data and analytics goes in there. It also is important for vendor management. So if you look at Amazon, there is a rating that is given to vendors where people are rating products and vendors. And Amazon basically displays that to give customers a comfort that this is a good vendor and you can go with it and buy with it. But it also is used for profitability and pricing for those vendors, because Amazon would be taking a cut from all these vendors based on the volume and how good a vendor is. They can play with that the rate that they charge, them. And uh, and the same with profitability. They can basically moderate like how they, the profitability of each vendor kind of changes by changes they make into the contracts. I've talked about and given you a glimpse of roles. Now I'll talk about like what are the different types of jobs that are there in this industry and in this area. First and foremost is data management. So this is very fundamental, and I would say that this was not so much like the sought after part of analytics, but it is now becoming a very sought after part since last 4 or 5 years. And the reason it was more balanced, because this was seen traditionally as this is work that does not lead to the insight. But now there is more and more realization as the volume of data has grown. This has become very important, because if you are not able to systematically store data, capture data, and use data, you are exposed to a lot of risk. And there is a lot of regulation coming in this space. Like even India has introduced laws for data localization, that data for Indian consumers should not be stored outside of Indian territory. So and Europe is more complex, where there are regulations around like who can actually store customer data, and you are now bound to delete customer data if the customer asks for that. So all of that basically sits in data management, and a typical job there would be of a person looking to structure data, working with engineering to kind of create data marts, create databases, create data architectures. So there are jobs around data architects who just look at like how our data stack should look like. What are the tools we should be on? Like, should we be on cloud or should we be on a server? If we are on a cloud, what kind of software should we use? So a lot of focus there is on that aspect. A newer role there is also around data governance and regulations to make sure that we are complying with all the regulations in that space. The next layer is business intelligence and MIS. So when you start creating basic reports like the charts that I showed to you, that's where it becomes like you're starting to add some MIS, which is management information systems, basic reporting that people are using to just look at how things are. It could be like, what was my profit yesterday? What were my sales yesterday? How many transactions did customers do, and so on. The next thing is business insights. This is where it comes that you start showing them insights and you tell them things like, out of every 4 users, 1 is dropping off from the site. And that is now, so basically the theme is that we are starting from raw data and we are moving towards an action. And that's where business insights is important, where it basically tells and starts telling trends in data rather than talking and letting the user do it themselves. The next thing is predictive modeling. So now when we see insights, what we want to do is we want to predict the future, and everyone wants to know the future, that what is in the future. And predictive modeling is where traditionally it was a job that mostly economics and statistics background folks used to do, but a lot of engineering courses and engineering colleges now are moving towards that, and that's what we see in the hiring pattern also. A lot of modeling is now happening in IITs and other engineering colleges, and that's where a lot of focus has been. But what we are doing in predictive modeling is basically creating a database model where there are a few inputs which will predict the output. So for example, a simple predictive model will be that, will it rain in the next 2 hours? And we could use a host of data that, did it rain in the past year at this time? Did it rain yesterday? What is the level of humidity? So we could use all those variables as inputs, and we come up with an output, which is the probability that will it rain or not in the next 2 hours. And that is used almost everywhere. I talk that analytics is used. Prescriptive analytics then is more about like, now that you know it will rain, it will start prescribing things that it will basically, like, for example, in you will see now in Google that it starts showing notifications that it will be this much warmer, so you may want to do this or that. So that is where prescription starts. So you basically start adding treatments to what you're predicting, that what the future will be, and you start adding things like what you should be prescribing for that. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are the next thing that is happening. So machine learning is actually not very different. I think we had to go to machine learning because the data has become so humongous that it has become difficult for humans to kind of manage it. So, and because there is so much of usage of analytics and data, it is difficult to have humans to do everything. So we want to create algorithms which can retrain themselves and keep on learning themselves. And that's what machine learning is about. Like the collaborative filtering, the algorithm that I talked about, like on Amazon's backend, like that is an example of machine learning, where we have an algorithm at the backend which keeps on learning on itself and becoming intelligent. Artificial intelligence is the next stage where we start to kind of put some things on autopilot. So for example, like in some cases, we may have a process right now for someone to manually review like a document. Let's say even CVs, like there are now artificial algorithms that screen CVs. So because a lot of companies hire in bulk and it is difficult for them to scan all the CVs on their own. So there are now companies that specialize in providing algorithms that scan CVs and give CV a score. So that is where like you've taken away the human interaction, and then the human will basically look at those shortlisted CVs only. Okay, so now what do you need to make a career in analytics? It happened by chance for me, to be honest. Like I actually joined I joined TCS as an engineer, and I was trained in Java. And once you enter the job force, and once you enter like the IT industry, you realize that like you can be put on any project. And I at that time thought I was unlucky to be put on a project which was not so much like a hot technology, because when you're in college, like Java and those things were at least at that time popular, and the sort of things you could create cool things. This was more like working with statisticians, not so cool looking job. But what I learned over time is that like it was a good thing for me that happened. But these are the two things which I feel are important. Like one is passion for numbers. You should be passionate about like knowing more, like in terms of like what are the numbers telling you. Are you able to find a story? I basically related to more like a detective job, and that brings me to the other point on being an inquisitive mind, because at times like the data that you're seeing or like a report you are seeing, it could be the same data at the back end. It might not be telling that story. What you have to do is, can you think of a way that by changing how the data is represented, can you think of another story that is emerging, which is hidden right now? And that is where like the inquisitive mind kind of comes into play. And the other thing which I would say about numbers is that given that the data has increased so much in size, what has become important is to learn some basic coding. Uh, though I would say that the tools that are becoming available now, like the likes of Azure and even like AWS has some free services, at least for a year they give free, which have a lot of things which are like a drag and drop kind of functionality. So you don't need to like know the entire algorithm. Like for example, a collaborative filtering algorithm can be deployed in an hour on Azure, because you're able to kind of just drag and drop that algorithm. So you don't need to worry about the code. Someone has written that code for you, and that's where open source becomes important. All that code is available. Just what you need to do is you need to configure it for your needs. But given that a lot of you are like in an engineering background and are studying, I would say that some coding is good. The place to start typically is R is the most simple language for data and analytics. That's where like you can make a startup is. Most of the resources on that are free, so that is a good place to start. The other thing is the inquisitive mind. I talked about more from a detective angle, but the other angle is that it is a very fast evolving space. Like the language that I started my career with and I got this job with American Express uh, was very popular at that time. It was a hot skill, like in some companies, they used to pay more for that and things like that. Right now, we are at a stage that everyone is trying to do away with that language. There are projects to decommission that language. And we have moved like 4 or 5 languages ahead to something else. So the thing here that I want to say is that what I learned in college probably like helped me get started with the ability to learn. But what is important is like, how do you continue to learn throughout like your career? Because this space will keep on changing, and that is what will be important like after you start and on an ongoing basis. These are some resources I thought are useful. Like if you're looking to kind of just, if I'm able to excite you enough and you want to get started right after this session, Analytics Vidya is a startup. It is like a very familiar face, like who runs it. That guy used to be like on an analytics job, just like me. He's decided to kind of move out and create this website. But they are very sophisticated now. They have what they have done is they have curated the courses very well. So anyone who is at a beginner level, they have a path for them, and they will guide you that okay, these are 2 or 3 other resources that you should learn. So for example, if you're looking to get started with Python, they would have a very good kind of track for that and how to practice for that. Coursera is, I would believe that all of you are familiar, but Coursera has like really good tracks if you're looking at uh, pieces of it and advanced things. Like, so for example, Coursera has courses uh, on Python, SQL, R, and then it also has data analytics tracks that you may want to try out if you're interested. Udemy has more tactical and I would say more practical oriented courses. It is the difference between Coursera is Coursera will try and teach you in depth of like what a particular concept is. Udemy will get you faster off the ground. Basically, like it will help you get the practical application much quicker than Coursera is the difference I find in both of them. And then if you want to like actually look at like real world problems, Kaggle.com is the best source. It is a very popular source in the data analytics community. This is a place where actually companies come and host challenges. But what you also get is you get data for them from them. So for example, Netflix time and again does a challenge about its recommender algorithm. So it would share a lot of its data for data analysts and data science guys to look at and play with it and come up with the next generation of algorithm for them. There are also prizes like once you start excelling at that these companies provide. But this is a good place where you can actually get, without like working with a company, you can actually get exposure to like real life data that the companies have. Okay, so that was my last slide, and I'll open it up for questions now.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge and words with us. We have a lot of questions in our chat box. We'll try to take queries one by one. First, we have Miss Aparna, student, BMIET.
Good afternoon, sir, respected teachers, and all interested listeners on Facebook. Sir, first of all, I want to thank you for devoting your precious time, and thanks for talking to us here. So, and I am also very grateful for my college for providing us the opportunity to attend this webinar, and this will help us in enriching our preparedness for the professional world. Now, talking about myself, I am Aparna, currently in my 4th year of Computer Science and Engineering from BMIT Sonipat. I am certified in Python, Java, Machine Learning, Deep Learning using Keras and TensorFlow, and I am also experienced in ML and AI internships. So, in short, I could say that I am an ML and AI enthusiast. Now, going towards my questions, sir, should we go for exploring all fields or identify just one domain for making our career goals at the undergraduate level?
I think if you look at business domains, and that is the good part about analytics, is that you don't need to change a lot of things, and that is why like you will see a lot of movement of analytics professionals from one field to the other field very easily. Like I started my career with actually healthcare and clinical trials, what I was working in first 2 years, and then I've been into financial services all through after that. But it is easier because the core of it is similar. It is basically the data that you will get will be different and the application will be different. I think as you start gaining experience, that is when like it is not a question that you should be looking at the beginning of your career. I would say at the beginning of the career, your focus should be on the core, that you have your core strong, that your fundamentals, and like it is really good. I didn't know any of those things like when I was in college, so it is really good to know that you guys are doing a great job and the college is doing a great job at making sure that you have exposure to the best and you're getting the best resources. But I would say that focus right now on those fundamentals. Try to get like real world data, like as I pointed to some resources, maybe look at the data. That it will give you a sense of like of what is happening in each of these domains. Hopefully, like when you move into a job, you will most likely have to work on a project, unless like you're into a consulting firm. Consulting firms typically work on a project by project basis, so you might in a short term get exposure to multiple domains, but otherwise you will start getting deeper exposure into one domain when you start your job, and that is when you can decide. Like for me, like when I was working on clinical trials, I used to end up working a lot with doctors on the client side, and I wasn't able to relate so much to it. And I thought like, I like the statistics part of it, I like the data part of it, I want to change the domain part of it. And that's when I made that switch. So I would say that get started and then take a call based on like, as you learn more about the domains, that what works best for you.
Thanks a lot, sir. My next question for you is, does a data analyst require an in-depth knowledge of data structure and algorithm also?
I think at an entry level, you are not expected to kind of have knowledge of everything. You will be doing a specific job, and it actually depends on what setup you end up in. Like in a startup kind of a setup, you end up doing everything. Like you could be a data analyst, you could actually also be running a marketing campaign in a startup. But in a more like mature setup, like I have been part of, typically you will start up with a piece of job, which there is a lot of support system to get you started. Like there will be enough trainings within the company to get you started on that. But over time, I think those are important. Except I think that data architecture and part is very important, because as these algorithms are becoming more and more complex and data is becoming huge, the architecture is very important. That are you able to meet the time of the speed? So for example, if like, let's look at the example of Amazon. If the algorithm is so complex, data is so huge, and the page, and you click on amazon.com and like it takes like 2 minutes for the page to load, half of the users will basically close the page by then. So the speed is also very important. If you're making something more sophisticated, speed is important. And that's where architecture comes into picture. And things like, how do you set up a queue for data? What do you expose real time versus what do you have as batch? Do you roll up for a batch process? And those kind of things become important. And you learn more and more about those things when you start working on real world data. But I would say, as a entry level person, what will be expected is that your concepts are clear on the core technology that you're saying that you have exposure on. You will not be expected that you will know like the full spectrum of things, to be honest. And that is what experience does. You'll learn it with experience.
Thanks again, sir, for all your advice and suggestions. Your words meant a lot for us. My last question for you is, what does a data analyst actually do in MNCs?
So a data analyst could be, and it again depends on the setup. Like some mature setups have like a separate data analyst job and a separate engineering job. So what it would mean is that the data analyst, say, will create like a data schema, that this is how the data will come. It will come every day at this hour. It will get refreshed. It will be appended. He will also create some rules around like if say there is a duplicate, what should be happening to the duplicate? Should it be logged as a separate entry? If the data quality is not bad, how should we kind of take those scenarios? So he will basically create like all the data flows and like how the data will be stored. In a mature setup, an engineer will code it. The data analyst might not code it himself. And in a more smaller setup, he will code it himself as well. And in some cases, the data analyst will also do some basic reporting. So for example, if it is a data set of say all the players say in IPL, and that is the database he has, he might do some basic reports also, that what is the average cost of each player by each franchisee. So they could do like some basic reporting along with like creating the databases.
We are so grateful for you, sir. And that's all from my side. Nice to talk to you, sir. And we all look forward for our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from Mr. Divya, student BMIET.
Very good afternoon to one and all. I hope everyone along with their families must be doing well in this pandemic. So first of all, thank you very much for holding such an informative session. The question from my side was, as machine learning, forecasting and analytics have blessed the industry to manage their resources, does it further mean that there will be surplus manpower when these models further mature?
So this has been like a doubt that has been like with the IT industry and with data and analytics, but I don't see it slowing down, to be honest. I think we are at a place where it is getting more and more adopted at this stage. Like every industry has a runway. Like I feel data and analytics is probably like at a very beginning stage. It was not before like 3 or 4 years that it was so popular. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, it has gained so much of traction, and like a lot of resources have come up and a lot of growth has happened. But I see that there is a longer runway here for data and analytics. And the reason I say is that today a lot of adoption is with big companies and not so much like with the smaller setups. And there will be a stage where like even smaller businesses would want to kind of use data and analytics, and that is where we are seeing the movement happening. So I would say that there is a longer runway if you were to consider that we haven't like matured here on this industry.
Secondly, I wanted to ask you, as you told us that you started from TCS, but you ended up in American Expressway and doing data analytics. So what was your like in TCS? What were you doing? What was your profile?
So I joined TCS as a programmer, and in TCS, what they basically do, I don't know if they still do it. This is like 15 years old information. I'm telling you. They basically used to train you on one programming language to everyone. So they took you for 2 months to a training center, and they would train you on a language. So I was trained on Java, and what typically happens is that on all these consulting firms, they have a project basis. Like they would get a client who will give them a project, and it would the technology that you will use is based on what the client is using or what the client is asking. So when I got my project in TCS, I was allocated to a project with a clinical trial. It's a big pharmaceutical company in the US, and they were working on clinical trials on cancer studies, and that's what my first project was. And they were using a language called SAS, which is statistical analysis software, and uh, and I had to basically learn SAS in 10 days. And they basically the client needs to have like everyone to be certified, so I needed to take a certification in 10 days. And once you enter the professional life, like you learn that like you have to do things what the company wants, and that's what got me started. But what I learned in that area is I worked very closely with doctors on the client side as well as biostatisticians. Statisticians are people who have their PhDs in stats, and they would basically know everything about stats. So it was very good to know with them because they knew the stats, I knew the software part of it, and we were basically creating reports which were submitted to regulators. So for example, if you look at the vaccine trials that are happening right now, they will have to get approval, and for getting that approval they need to submit reports that they did this study. They will share some statistics about the study, that this many people had adverse events, like maybe someone did not respond well to the medicine and so on. So we basically created those kind of reports and gave it to the client. So, and SaaS, the other place at that time where it was used was on the financial services. So that's how I moved to American Express. They required a SaaS programmer, but they required a SaaS programmer on the marketing analytics side. So I was hired to code like an algorithm, which was a very basic algorithm at that stage, and uh, and that's how I moved. So SaaS was the common bridge for me to get to that job, and and then like within Amex, like things keep on changing. It's a big organization, so like you keep on moving along.
So first of all, you were trained in Java, but due to the project, you have to learn SAS, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
The other question we have is from Ms. Shivani, BMIT student.
I, Shivani, currently pursuing my BTech.
Shivani, your voice is too low. Sorry, your
Good
voice is too
afternoon,
low.
sir.
Yeah, this is better.
Is it okay, sir?
Yeah, it is okay.
Good afternoon, sir, and all my respected teachers. Sir, I, Shivani, student pursuing my BTech in stream of computer science and engineering. Sir, I would like to ask you, what is the criteria for someone to choose a career in data and analytics? How should one make a decision for being fit for this domain?
I think as I said, like the maths is an important component. Like the numbers is an important component. So so a passion and a knowledge for that is important in a basic requisite. So I would say having that and some basic, like you don't need like to advance the programming skill unless you decide like you want to code algorithms yourself. So if you're doing like some basic analytics, like SQL, just knowing SQL will take you a long way, and that still works and is still around. But if you want to kind of code algorithms and that is what you aspire for, I would say that maybe learning advanced programming languages like Python and packages on Python would be a good thing to get exposure to.
Thank you so much, sir.
The next question we have from Ms. Toshita, student, BMIET.
Yeah, Toshita, you can speak.
Good afternoon, sir. I, Toshita, currently pursuing computer science engineering from BMIET. Sir, my question is, can we do analytics with handy tools available on web? Is it so simple to learn the data analytics?
It is, and as I said, like some of these links that I just shared, like Analytics Vidya and Coursera, will point you to those courses. But for example, I know for Python there is this track on Code Academy, which is completely just like on a portal itself. So you can actually learn basic Python there itself. So they have built a console in the web page itself for you to learn. A lot of these new age cloud-based tools like Azure and AWS have very simple interfaces. You don't even need to know like basic coding, like it is drag and drop functionality. And I get exposed to a lot of like what they're doing with schools these days, like they're teaching kids like basic steps of programming now, like as web interfaces, and that's what is happening with data science, like with all these cloud-based tools. So I would say like maybe make an account for Azure if you're interested. Like Azure is probably like the best interface I have seen in terms of if you want to get started without getting into too much coding.
Sir, my next question is, what are the key skill employer is looking for in the youngster in this domain?
I think it is basically that analytical mind at an entry level that we are looking at. We probably don't we don't actually do a lot of programming tests at an entry level because a lot of focus on analytical mind and problem solving, that how a person responds to a problem, not even like solving the problem, but more the approach of solving the problem, because that is very important. Like a lot of the code and the syntax of the code is something that like Google is not just built for like making money. It is built to help us, like, and that is a place where it helps us. So I would say that there is not a lot of focus on like syntax and like, but you have a logical mind. I think that is the other thing which is looked at is the attitude, that does the person have a learning attitude. So I would say those are the basic things at an entry level that I as a hiring person would look at.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time.
Another question we have is from Ms. Shraddha, student BMIET.
I think Shraddha is on mute. So someone will unmute her.
A very good afternoon, sir, my teachers, and all the interested listeners. I, Shraddha Avasthi, am in my fourth year of engineering from BMIT Sonipat. I have specialization in Java and database like SQL and MongoDB. My question to you is that technology changes overnight, as we all know. So, if I opt for a career in specialized technology in my graduation degree, so what is the lifetime of that 10 to 15 years down the line?
To be honest, that's a like I hardly use anything that I learned in college, and it is not that like it has happened like this year. It probably like I think what is important and that is like the good thing about engineering as a background, and that's where you see a lot of engineers kind of doing very different kind of jobs. Is it doesn't teaches you so much like or I would say like the subjects are important. We have teachers, like, so I won't say like the subjects are not important, but I think what you learn here there is like the ability to learn anything. I think and in quick time, and that is the important skill that you basically take with you forever. And you actually cannot determine the shelf life of like anything these days, and the shelf life of technologies has actually gone down significantly now. versus what it was. Like if I look at like even if you look at say mobile app, like they are creating like a version every year now. A new version of the rating system comes. And just these things. Actually, you have to recode and optimize the app for that experience. So it is like an always on thing, and just like you change your mobile every year, like the technology is changing at that kind of pace. So you basically need to adapt. So what I would say is the focus should be on the ability to learn and unlearn. Like that is an important part as well. Like if you keep on doing through the old ways and world is moving to the newer ways, I think that is also that puts you at a disadvantage. So what I have seen over 15 years is that you have to unlearn what you have also learned so that you can learn new things.
So I guess unlearning a few things is difficult.
It is at times because you form habits, like you want to just like I would say that when we first moved to big data, that move was very difficult.
Okay.
We were all used to SAS, like that had been used for like 10, 15 years. Everyone was so comfortable using that. No one wanted to kind of move to like Hive was the language which we were starting to use for querying at that time versus SQL. And there was a lot of resistance, like not because like Hive was not very different, like but there was a resistance and an inertia of people to kind of not move towards that, and those are things that happen. And but I think the faster you learn and adapt to new technology, I think that is what actually is important in a longer term career. What you're studying in college, like I think some of the fundamentals like data structures and those things like always will stay important. Like those will like never go away. But I think there is so much squeezed into like those 4 years or like a semester. Like there is not so much time that you can go deeper into all the subjects. So what I take from the experience is that the college taught me to learn different things at a rapid pace, and then if I want to go deeper, I can continue to do that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
We have a question from a Facebook participant, sir. What are the prior skills required to be hired by an MNC as an analyst?
This question is being asked by Mr. Akshay Goyal. Akshay Goyal, he is on Facebook Live. He's asked this question.
Can you repeat the question, Janya?
What are the prior skills required to be hired by an MNC as an analyst?
I would say like some basic programming, or like because it is not that the companies would use so much of it, but like it is how the talent market is kind of evolving. A lot of new joiners typically now have exposure to R and Python, like they do some basic courses on those, or through internships. Those are like seen as a good thing because then they know like some stuff. But as I said, like it is more like logic and reasoning and those kind of things which are more important and will play a critical part. But I think, like as I said, like some of these how CVs are being screened now with a lot of automation in that area also. Like having those skills actually helps you kind of make the cut for your CV to be screened. So it is seen as a positive that if you have some of those basic skills and exposure.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from Saurabh Jain on Facebook. When companies in campus come, it take only web developers, SDE roles or system engineering roles. No one takes direct job of a college fresher as an analyst or ML role. So how to get that job then?
Janya, can you come again? Your voice cut through.
Okay, I repeat the question. When companies in a campus come, it takes only web developers, SG roles or system engineering roles. No one takes direct job of a college fresher as an analyst or ML role. So how to get that job then in that case?
Yeah, I think on that one, like it typically like it depends on like what the company is looking for. a lot of the initial, like if you, and things are evolving over time. A lot of the initial hiring, if I look at algorithms, like we just used to hire like PhDs for those kind of things. And things have evolved over time and are changing over time. I think what companies are looking in that area is specialization on the domain also. So that is what, like, the starting level jobs might be more on that side right now. I would not not say like the data analyst jobs are zero. Like there are like entry level data analyst jobs also that come through, but a bulk of the job right in the initial, like on the software side and programming side, will be web development. A, because a lot of that is happening because a lot of stuff is moving online, and B, because for sophisticated algorithm development jobs, typically the expectation is that the person would know the domain and then apply his knowledge to make it more efficient. So that requires some experience, and that is where how the companies go about that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for clearing all our doubts and queries. Now, moving towards the end, I would like to ask our principal, sir, Dr. Harish Mittal. So, would you like to say something?
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Abhivarun to give us his valuable time on our request. I think this session will be very beneficial for our current students as well as future students who are looking for career in data analytics, which is emerging field in today's time. And as Mr. Abhivarun has rightly explained, what are different fields in which data analytics is required, and which kind of job the students may seek in this field. So I would like to again thank our resource person, Mr. Abhivarun, to be with us, our student Janya Sharma for hosting this event. In future also, we will be coming with various resource persons in different fields to share their knowledge and experience with our students and future aspirants in different career aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have another question on Facebook by Gunjan Goel. If someone wants to change their field and start as an analyst, then how can they path themselves for the same?
Again, I would say that like it depends. Like if I'm assuming that that person who is asking is already doing a job and they want to switch over to this career, I would say that maybe like look at a similar domain. Like if you are like a web developer, say in e-commerce, then think of like doing an analyst job within e-commerce. So that's an easier thing because you at least know something, and then you can pick up on the analytical skills and programming or data skills that are required for that domain.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to ask our Associate Director, Dr. Abhinav Juneja. So would you like to say something?
Very good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody had a good time in the last 1 hour and had something to take away from this seminar. And I'm thankful to the resource Abhivarun. He has been a good source of knowledge for us today. And I believe our students have got at least something new in their knowledge domain, and they will try to explore more on data and analytics, because as rightly told by Abhivarun, that data is the new oil, and within a short span, this data and analytics and machine learning, AI, all these fields have evolved very rapidly, and they are taking the world to a new direction every now and then. And I believe the next 5 to 10 years down the line will be very critical and will be very fruitful for people who spend their time and aligned to this field. And along with this, I'd like to also inform you that we are starting from today onwards, we are starting with a series of webinars And tomorrow also we are having a webinar from one of our ex-student alumni from this campus, Mr. Anshul Dhingra, who is a very well-known motivational speaker. He will be coming tomorrow for a webinar at 11 a.m. And I invite all of you attending this webinar for tomorrow also. And I think these webinars are an important key for learning new things while sitting at home. So it's not that we are going for one or two. We are trying to tie up with a number of industry professionals, and hopefully we'll be coming up with a number of such sessions, interactive and fruitful for all of you. So all the best for learning at home. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to ask our Dean Academic, Dr. Vishal Jain. So would you like to share some words?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jania. At the onset, thank you very much, Abhivaran, for joining us live from London, sparing time from your busy schedule. And I would like to mention that we had requested and unconditionally he consented to prepare a webinar out of his busy schedule and coming live on Zoom. And this session is live on Facebook also, and we got a overwhelming response from all the students. And at the same time, Abhivarun, he answered all the questions for the participants who are there in the Zoom also, and from those who are asking the question on the Facebook Live also. And I'm sure that all students, faculty, everybody is benefited from this webinar. Such an important topic of the decade, that is the data analytics. And I'm sure that students will definitely find a very promising career in data analytics ahead. Thank you very much, everyone, sir, and hope to hear you soon again. And we believe that you will join us again very soon, and we'll come up with some more sessions with you in the times to come. And I would also like to thank our worthy principal, Dr. Harish Mittal, Dr. Abhinav Juneja, and all the staff members present here, all the students and the visitors who are part of this webinar. Thank you once again. And last but not the least, thank you, Jania. You are wonderful to host and coming up for more sessions in the time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So I hope you all will take benefits of the webinar and all the words of Mr. Abhivarun Juneja and take a step towards data and analyst as your career. Thank you all for joining the session.
Thank you.